الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse in Surah Al-Baqarah addresses the believers by saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O those who have iman. Kutiba alaykumus siyamu, fasting has been prescribed upon you. Kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, just as it has been prescribed upon those who came before you. La'allakum tattaqun, in order that you gain, you achieve, you acquire taqwa, Allah consciousness. There are 3 points amongst many within this verse which I would like to inshallah just speak upon, and I pray that Allah Ta'ala make it beneficial firstly for myself and for all of us. So the first point is the address of Allah Ta'ala, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, which is in address which comes 88 times in the Quran, and from the beginning of the Quran until this verse here in Surah Al-Baqarah, this would be the 5th time where Allah Ta'ala says, O those who believe, and then gives them some very important instruction. In the words of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, he says that إِذَا مَا سَمِعْتَ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ يَقُولُ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, that when you hear Allah Azza wa Jal say, O those who have iman, O those who have faith, O those who believe, then what should a person do? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu says, فَأَرِعْهُ سَمْعَكَ, let a person lend a attentive ear. Let a person listen very carefully. Why? فَإِنَّ مَا بَعْدَهُ خَيْرٌ يَأْمُرُ بِهِ, because what follows after that address of Allah Ta'ala, all those who believe, there is goodness, يَأْمُرُ بِهِ, which Allah Ta'ala is instructing to. Or شَرٍ أو شَرٌ يَنْهَ عَنْهُ, or there is an evil which Allah Ta'ala is prohibiting from. So Allah Ta'ala wants us to achieve, acquire the goodness, to attain it, to benefit from it here in this world and in the akhirah. And also it could be a warning to be protected from harm in this world and in the akhirah as well. So this is the first part. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Allah Ta'ala is addressing the believers, calling upon the believers, for the fast is something to be done because of one's faith in Allah Ta'ala. And it's almost a expression to assist the believers. Allah Ta'ala wants to assist them in fulfilling the task which follows. كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, that fasting has been prescribed upon you, just as it has been prescribed upon those who come before you. And this comes to our second point. So fasting is not something new to the deen of Islam. It's not something new to the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Fasting has been prescribed. Fasting has been there since the very early times. It's one of those means of worship which has been in every nation, right? Every nation has had their portion of fasting. So in terms of an obligation to fast, this has been in previous nations. But the details of fasting, was it 30 days? Was it 3 days? And what breaks the fast, what does not nullify the fast, those are secondary details that may have differed from one nation to another. But what's most important to understand is that fasting has been something in principle as an obligation which has always existed from the beginning time. And that's something which brings solace, brings comfort to us to understand that those who came before us, they also had done this. And some would also indicate, some psychologists, those who work in the field of mental health as well, to know that when we know that some are also going through the same struggles that we are going through, then that brings comfort. So when a person understands that, listen, that there's nations, there's people that came before me, and alhamdulillah, they were made successful because of the fasting, then I will also inshallah fast. It brings encouragement. Something similar when a person's going to consider a certain school to go to, and he knows, or the family knows, a person who graduated from that school, who spent time in that school, who learned there, and they get their opinion, their consultation, and that brings them more comfort. Similarly, it could be a certain career or a path that a person, or a job which a person has landed, or a certain company and a person has connections or knows of people who have been there for years and gains that experience and benefits from that. So those who came before us, fasting has been prescribed upon them as well. Some of the scholars of Quran indicate that the previous nations, they would fast 3 days. And as we will inshallah soon come to know, that prior to the fast of Ramadan being prescribed, which was in the second year of Hijrah, the fasting of Ramadan was made incumbent, was made an obligation. The Muslims prior to that, in the Makkah period, they would fast 3 days as well. And just like previous nations, some of the scholars of Quran are also of the opinion that it was 3 days every month, which would be something of the fasting, which would be in the other nations. Others were of the opinion that no, it was exactly a month as well, something like 30 days, and this was found in the other nations, and this was given to the people of the book. Al-Mujahid, a scholar of the Quran from the Tabi'een, he says, كتب الله عز وجل صوم شهر رمضان على كل أمة. Mujahid was of the opinion, may Allah be pleased with him, that Allah Ta'ala had prescribed the fasting of the month of Ramadan upon every nation. And Hassan al-Basri, he mentions that the fasting of Ramadan was prescribed upon the people before us, the people who were given the book. Both of those nations, fasting was prescribed upon them. It was one of those nations, they had left that month of fasting which Allah had asked them to fast, had prescribed for them, and they only fasted that day wherein Fir'aun was drowned. The second group of the people who were given the book, they also were prescribed 30 days. However, it was the season that was prescribed in at that time. It was the summer months. The days were longer. And because of the thirst that they would experience, or the somewhat difficulties, they had decided that no, let's change it to the shorter days and cooler weather. And they felt bad about it, so they added another 10 days. And then a king who ruled over them, he had become sick, and he made a vow that if he becomes cured, then he will also add to it. And he did, and he added another 7. And then another king came along, he added another 3. So what was initially 30 moved to 40, and then another 10 as well. So they had actually 50. And then of course, that would have been too long. And then perhaps they had also left it out altogether, or had lessened the number thereafter. So the preservation of the fast, historically, in terms of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has wanted it, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah, all praise due to Allah ta'ala. This ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has preserved the fast exactly how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had expected from them, had prescribed for them, for this ummah, just as He had prescribed it upon those who came before this ummah. Back to the point, in terms of Islamically, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, we learned that they would fast prior to the second year of Hijri, when the Ramadan fast became an obligation, 3 days a month. and including the day of Ashura. Now, in regards to the ruling of the day of Ashura prior to the second year of Hijri, scholars have debated that what was the ruling? Was it a sunnah? Was it an emphasized sunnah? Was it an obligation or not? Some of our scholars were of the opinion that Ashura was farad and then was only abrogated by the fasting of the month of Ramadan. In Sahih Muslim, As-Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha, she says that the Quraysh, they used to fast the day of Ashura in Jahiliyyah. And the Muslims also had fasted this month as well, of course, from the prophetic guidance as well. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yasumuhu, he would also fast this day of Ashura. And when he made the hijrah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Medina, صامه وأمر بصيامه, then he had fasted this day of Ashura. And when in the year's second year, when the month of Ramadan, it became an obligation, then he had made it optional. He had made it optional. It would not be an obligation. It wouldn't be farad. Of course, the reward is there that an entire year's sins would be forgiven. But in this specific narration, the Prophet ﷺ then indicated, "Man sha'a samahu wa man sha'a tarakahu," that whoever wills, they may fast it, this day of Ashura, and whoever wills, they can also leave out the fast. So there's two benefits, amongst others, of knowing that we are not the only ones who fasting has been prescribed upon us. Rather, Allah Ta'ala gives us comfort. And this is from the amazing generosity, from the mercy and the forgiveness and the easiness of our deen, and the Creator being so benevolent and loving to His creation. For Allah Ta'ala can prescribe, can command and prohibit as He wills. And He doesn't need to give any reason for that matter, because He is the one who is in control of our lives, and He is the one who has created, and He has all wisdom, and He is all knowledgeable. But Allah Ta'ala, out of His mercy and His generosity, He gives us comfort and solace to know that we are not the only ones that have fasted. And even more so perhaps, just normally when we come to before the month of Ramadan, sometimes there's certain apprehensions, sometimes there might be certain uncertainties, because we have a certain routine of school, of work, of various obligations to see to, and we wonder how are we going to fit in those obligations. And I was discussing this with one of our brothers, and he reminded me that that's normally only for the first week. After the first week, then everyone's in the routine, everyone's in the rhythm, and then we almost have this feeling that I wish that Ramadan was for all times. And even that is also a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He hasn't made it for the entire year. Although alhamdulillah, there's great barakah, there's great blessings, and alhamdulillah, we all feel spiritually uplifted. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His divine wisdom, knew that perhaps we wouldn't have that stamina or that steadfastness to carry that same momentum of Ramadan outside the month of Ramadan. May Allah Ta'ala put barakah in Sha'ban and allow us to reach the month of Ramadan. But the point is that, so this year is a bit different given our present circumstances, given the lockdown as well. But a person should know that those who came before us, they all had also faced various situations. Of course, our situation is very unique or perhaps unprecedented in our lifetime, that I understand it to be, and Allah Ta'ala knows best, that we should always be, of course, between fear and hope, fearing that we hope that, perhaps there's certain mistakes or certain sins that we are committing, and because of this, we find that all masajid, or the vast majority of masajid in the world, are closed, and it seems like this is going to go into the month of Ramadan. Will it last the entire Ramadan? Allah Ta'ala knows best, but it seems like we'll be starting the month of Ramadan like we are at this present moment. So we're fearful, and this is concerning for us. And we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we ask and we beg Allah Ta'ala to overlook and forgive our shortcomings, forgive our sins, and make the strong resolution never to go back to it in making tawbah. And we also are hopeful that there's also benefit within this circumstance, that we can acquire, that we can seize these opportunities and come out of this situation in a better way, individually, as a family, and as a community, and as a ummah, collectively, with Allah Ta'ala's permission. So we also learned that within the period of Islam as well, the illustrious battle of Badr had taken place in the month of Ramadan, where the believers were only 300 odd, and the opposition was in approximately 3 times more, about 1,000. And the believers were ill-equipped. They didn't have at their disposal much equipment to defend themselves, while the opposition had plenty of horses, plenty of ammunition to hurt or to intend to hurt the believers. But as we know, the battle of Badr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's assistance had come. The angels were sent and descended, and they assisted the believers, and they were victorious in this way. And that's a reflection to know that they were dealt with a circumstance which, alhamdulillah, we are far from facing that circumstance. But still, that brings inspiration for us that, alhamdulillah, the Badr was in the month of Ramadan, and that was a victory for the believers. Similarly, our situation as well, we are hopeful and we are asking and begging Allah Ta'ala to also allow us to see the victory within our situation and have those high hopes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is the benefit in knowing that it has been prescribed upon those who came before us. Also, it makes it easy for us, the ummah, that we could also do better compared to those who were given the book and other nations who had the month of Ramadan or fasting prescribed for them, but they did not see to it, they did not fulfill their obligation of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had expected them to fulfill it. And the last point, after mentioning that all those who believe, Allah Ta'ala is addressing us with something those very important, fasting has been prescribed upon you, just as it has been prescribed upon those who came before you. Our last point is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, in order that you gain taqwa, Allah consciousness. And taqwa linguistically comes from the word wiqaya, which means to protect. لغة حفظ الشيء مما يؤذيه ويضره, is to protect something from any type of harm, from any type of element which would harm it or affect it's affected in a negative way. So when a person, we could very understand at this point of time as well, the various measures that we are taking for protection on a national level and many places in the world as well. There is a lockdown, and the idea is to protect, to preserve human life. There are many also means that various tools which other people are using, which, for example, people are wearing masks, some are wearing gloves, some are making a point for not to go inside and shopping. Rather, they're giving their orders online and having a pickup or a slot. So there's various praiseworthy ways of how people are protecting themselves, and whether Muslim or not, everyone is taking these measures. And that's precisely what taqwa is. For the believer, he takes measures to fulfill and takes means to protect himself from sin. And that is essentially expressed in following the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing to the best of one's ability all the do's, and to stay away from all the don'ts. Al-imtithal bi awamirillah, to fulfill the commands of Allah, wajtinabi nawahihi, and to stay away and refrain from those that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited. And that's essentially what would be referring to the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah consciousness. A person realizes and grows and progresses in their consciousness of Allah Ta'ala, although no one is watching, but a person understands that Allah Ta'ala is watching, and a person accordingly molds their statements, their mind, their heart, and their actions in a way which would be pleasing to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's essentially the idea, the underlying factor, and the reason and the philosophy behind the fasting, that we grow in the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the very taqwa which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had prescribed upon all the nations which came before. Anittaqullah, that to have, it was the wasiyah, it was the instruction for those who came before us and us as well. Anittaqullah, that we instill within us the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this taqwa is so important, and it comes in various occasions, including, for example, the khutbah of Jumu'ah. Some of our scholars, they were of the opinion that the wasiyah of taqwa, the instruction to have the taqwa of Allah Ta'ala, was a part of an integral of the khutbah. And if there's no wasiyah, instruction to have taqwa of Allah Ta'ala, then the khutbah would not be, according to them, correct or valid. The wasiyah of taqwa as well, passages in the Quran to have taqwa, is also is also read and recited at the time of nikah as well, at the time of the Islamic marriage. Again, in all departments of our life, we find that this is something which we cannot disregard, and inshallah we are continuing to strive and to grow in our taqwa. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma ati anfusana taqwaha wa zakkiha anta khayru man zakkaha anta waliyuha wa mawlaha. Oh Allah, grant our soul the taqwa and purify it, for only you can purify it, Ya Rabbil Alameen. What are some of the benefits of taqwa? There are many, of which I would like to inshallah mention just a few, and we ask and we beg Allah Ta'ala to give us that taqwa which Allah Ta'ala intends with the upcoming month of Ramadan, just around the corner. The first is al-ilmu wattaqullaha wa yu'allimukumullah. Allah, fear Allah, have the taqwa of Allah, Allah consciousness, and Allah will teach you. Al-aqibah wal-aqibatu lil-muttaqeen. A good outcome, the greatest and the best outcome is for the muttaqeen, those who have taqwa. Allah Ta'ala will give al-furqan, a criterion to distinguish between good and evil. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, all those who have iman. In tattaqullaha yaj'al lakum furqana. If you have taqwa of Allah, Allah will give you intuition, give you insight to understand what is good, and decipher and differentiate from the evil. Mahabbatullah, Allah Ta'ala will love you. Inna Allaha yuhibbul muttaqeen. Indeed, Allah loves those who have taqwa. Nasruhu Ta'ala, Allah will help and assist those who have taqwa. Inna Allaha ma'al ladhina taqaw. Indeed, and most certainly, Allah is with those who have taqwa. Al-qabul, acceptance of one's deeds, acceptance in the court of Allah Ta'ala. إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Indeed, and most certainly, Allah accepts from the muttaqeen, those who have taqwa. Allah will create a solution for our problems. Allah Ta'ala will create a way out, an exit for our challenges. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ, whoever has the taqwa of Allah, يَجْعَل لَهُ مَخْرَجًا, then Allah will make an exit, a way out for that person. وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ, and Allah will grant this person and provide for him or her مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ, from where they would never ever imagine. Al-yusr, Allah will make their matter easy. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَل لَّهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا. That whoever is mindful and has the taqwa of Allah, Allah will make their matter easy for them. Salahul a'mal, Allah will repair the deeds of that believer who has that taqwa. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha wa qulu qawlan sadida. O those who believe, have the taqwa of Allah and speak a upright, just speech. يُصْلِحْ لَكُمْ أَعْمَالَكُمْ. And Allah will repair and mend your deeds. Inshallah, it's hopeful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive one's shortcomings. And in fact, Allah ta'ala can also replace those shortcomings and convert them into good deeds as well. So لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, this fast of Ramadan, the underlying reason why Allah Ta'ala has prescribed it is in order for us to acquire, in order for us to grow within that taqwa which Allah Ta'ala intends. And Allah Ta'ala wants us to give us all these types of fruits. And alhamdulillah, it's about less than, I would say, about 2 weeks till the month of Ramadan. So therefore, let us renew our intentions for this coming month. Let us have forward-looking and embrace the month of Ramadan with welcomeness, and understand that Allah Ta'ala only wants good from us and He does not want to harm us on the least. We can ask Allah Ta'ala to make it easy for us and accept it, and we ask Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to give us that taqwa in public and in private. Ittaqillah haythuma kunt, as the Prophet ﷺ instructed, that wherever you find yourself and whatever state or condition that you find yourself, so physically, wherever you find yourself, public or private, work or school, outside or at a park, wherever it is. Of course, now with the lockdown, you're not allowed really to go to the park. But the point is that a person physically, wherever they find themselves, to be mindful of Allah Ta'ala, and also in whatever state a person finds themselves, whether it's a state of affluence or poverty, whether it's a state of a person's in the state of their spirits are high, they feel good, they feel happy, or they are angry, or they are sad, always being mindful of what Allah Ta'ala wants and expects from them. May Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala put barakah for us in what remains in the month of Sha'ban, and allow us to embrace and reach the month of Ramadan and have that forward looking and achieve and bless us with that quality of taqwa as Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala wants from us. And may Allah Ta'ala also grant everything which He has intended for us through the month of Ramadan, of the khair and the goodness and all that which He has intended. May Allah Ta'ala grant it to all of us in its fullest, to the fullest, and make it a means of turning to Him and being accepted in His court and securing the best of this world and in the everlasting life of the akhirah. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun alal mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.